Welcome to the Side Hustle to Small Business podcast, powered by Hiscox. I'm your host, Sanjay Parekh. Throughout my career, I've had side hustles, some of which have turned into real businesses. But first and foremost, I'm a serial technology entrepreneur. In the creator space, we hear plenty of advice on how to hustle harder and why you can sleep when you're dead. On this show, we ask new questions in hopes of getting new answers. Questions like, how can small businesses work smarter? How do you achieve balance between work and family? How can we redefine success in our businesses so that we don't burn out after year 3? Every week, I sit down with business founders at various stages of their side hustle to small business journey. These entrepreneurs are pushing the envelope while keeping their values. Keep listening for conversation, context, and camaraderie. Brie Sodano learned to trade stock options while working as a director at a Boys and Girls Club. This part-time hobby inspired Brie to become a certified financial advisor. As she grew her advising practice, Brie realized most of her clients struggled with run-of-the-mill issues like credit card debt, student loans, and feeling perpetually broke. In response, Brie founded Sheep to Shark, where she coaches women on how to take control of their money and find freedom in the process. Brie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you about kind of your journey and some money tips at the end, but let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about you and tell us about your background.
Sure. So after college, I worked at my local Boys and Girls Club for about a decade. And at some point, I was the team director, and I was, as a professional, reading not episodes, but like the Twilight novels, and I was playing Wii. And so I loved that job. I felt like I was making an impact with the kids, but I was hardly making any money. And so I taught myself how to trade stock options to supplement my income, which I don't suggest or teach to my clients because it's super stressful. Well, for me, it was super stressful. Some people can just rock on with all of that. And as time went on, there was another, I'd kind of just outgrown the job, the position, the entire thing. And so one day I was just stressed and I was whining to my mom, and she was like, well, you already know how to trade stock options. Why don't you go and get your Series 7 and be a financial advisor? And this tracked because my mom worked on Wall Street. My dad was in insurance. My grandfather sold stocks and bonds. And then I have uncles that do. So it was just a family, a family trade. And so I did that, and I went and I got a job with a local, a brokerage firm, and I got my 7 and my 66 and all my insurance licenses. And that's when I started really taking clients, and I was working with clients, and they were coming to see me saying things like, well, Brie, this credit card debt is from my first marriage, or I'm still paying on my student loans and my kids are about to go to college. And, I make a couple $100,000 and I have $22 in my bank account, kind of what's wrong with me? And so I started really kind of looking at well, why are these smart, successful people having so many challenges with their money? What's going on here? And so I started working with my clients on budgets, really sexy spreadsheets, really,
I think you might be the first person that has ever said the words sexy spreadsheets together, at least on this podcast.
Sanjay, definitely not. There's an entire segment of the world who is into spreadsheets. I'll tell you. And they're my people. I know them. They're yeah, show me a sexy spreadsheet. And so we were working with budgets, and I would be so into it. I'd be thrilled typing them out. And then my clients, they'd come back to my office 6 weeks later. We were going to do a checkup, and I'd be like, how did it go? How was it with your budget? And they'd be like, I didn't really do it. No, we didn't. I read it, and I didn't do any of the things. And so then I started working with clients on habits, and then we started working on mindset, and then we started working on emotions that come in with our money. And then at this point in my journey, I was up before the sun, reading the stock reports and doing everything that it needed to take to be a good investment advisor. But then I was just falling in love with cash flow and just the human side of it. And so I left my book of business to my partner, and I started Sheep to Shark a few years ago. And then that's kind of how it started.
Yeah. So when you were getting that degree, what was your kind of vision as to what you were going to do afterwards? What kind of job were you thinking?
I don't necessarily know that I had a super good plan. I think when I started college, it was this idea that you would just go and do the things that interested you most. And so I took a lot of classes on urban studies, and I liked a lot of like political science type stuff and international things. And then I finished college and I was working at a Boys and Girls Club, and I don't know, then we changed, and it all tracks. It works.
Now when you're looking back, obviously, all the pieces kind of fit into place, but probably when you were at that place, it maybe didn't make sense. Maybe it did. I don't know.
Yeah. It didn't make any sense. I didn't really have a good plan. Like I remember my dad asking me kind of like, well, all right, so look, because when I started college, I was going for a management major.
Yeah.
And if you know me, that you would know 100% that's not a good fit. I do not like to manage things. I do not like it. Even like when we hire people, somebody else generally manages them. Like I have leadership qualities to lead people, but not to like manage
the day-to-day
tasks.
management part
Very
of it.
stressful for me.
Yeah. So let me ask you about your history then, and like your family history. Is there entrepreneurship in your history or in the family's history? Like, do you have any entrepreneurs in the family?
No, not really. Not when you say it like that. No, but there was a lot of my family was in finance, and those are commission-based jobs. So there was a lot of commission-based work, which is like kind of the in-between between like that salary work and entrepreneurs. But like my dad sold insurance and he worked on commission. And, so there was, and my mom, when she was on Wall Street, she was there for a few years. She didn't do a full career there, but that commission-based work that was pretty common.
That hustle that you need to be an entrepreneur and kind of get the sale closed and done. So then you're working your job. You've got these clients, and then at some point you realize like, yeah, you know what? I want to do this on my own. Like, what was that aha moment? What was that thing that tipped you over and said like, you know what? I need to put my own shingle out and do this on my own directly.
So it was a couple things. It was that I was really stretched thin. So to be good at the things that I do in Sheep the Shark and to also be good at investment advising are two really very different skill sets and two different levels of research, right? So like if I was researching what stocks and bonds and mutual funds to sell you, I'd be reading the research reports and seeing how the business was doing and looking at the charts and things like that. And when I'm doing the work that I do in Sheep to Shark, it's very much understanding the psychology and the human and the holistic and like the ways that our psychology impacts our behaviors. And like, they're two really different things. And so I did it for a while. And then like, I was just tired. Like I was just like, ugh, like it was just a lot because it was essentially really doing two different things. And so once I started really charging for the planning and knowing that I could do it, then that was kind of it. It was like, once I started getting some clients and I felt like I could do it, like, and I had some evidence that I could do it, and then it started to make sense. And so then I went out on my own.
Yeah. So now what you're doing is more the planning side of it, and not the kind of day-to-day stocks and bonds and recommending which ones to invest in. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah.
Or?
So
Yeah.
Sheep to Shark, I create a lot of courses for people, and a lot of my work. So we look at money in like 5 different ways. So like there's the strategy aspects, like what money needs to go where. Like that's typically when people think about money, they're like, all right, well, what do I need to do? Like where does my money need to go? Like that's the level of like budgets or, systems or things. And then there's habits, so you have to work on your habits so that way your plan goes. Because if you have a plan, but you don't literally do it, it doesn't get done. You have to literally do it. Right. And so then then you see what gets in the way of building out those habits. And then then that's where we start to look at our money mindset. We start to see, all right, well, what do I think about money? And then we look at like the emotions that go into it. So when you put all of those things together, that's kind of like the basis of the work that I do. So I have like courses and I create content. And I do some high-end consulting for business owners, but that's really kind of the work. It's more about like you being able to expand yourself into whatever your next level is. That's really like the work that I do. I don't sell investments at all. It's not like, I do not sell investments. I do not sell insurance. I don't sell anything like that. It's just really helping people get out of their own way in their relationship with money.
So let's dive into a little bit, because given that you're kind of a financial planner, you're making this decision from moving from, what some people would consider a safe job of working for somebody and into your own thing. Yeah, like, what was that process right there for you of deciding, like, okay, yeah, I can make this leap. Like, it makes sense financially. You said you had a couple of clients, you kind of proven out that you can do this planning work, but what was the process that you went through? Because a lot of the folks that are listening to this podcast are probably thinking the same thing of, like, how do I make the jump into doing my maybe side hustle that I've been doing and making my full-time thing? Like, when do I decide to go all in? How did you take that decision and plan that and make sure that you were going to be okay on the other side of it?
So for me, I didn't have a whole separate side hustle. Like, when I started doing the cash flow work, I was able to do it in my current business because because they fit together. So that's probably a little bit different. It wasn't like I was like, still working at the Boys and Girls Club and then selling financial planning totally on the side. So I was at full time, and I think too, there was like this middle step of the commission-based work, right? So like, when I was at a Boys and in the nonprofit, I had a salary, and then I moved to commission-based work, which is very, very different. It's kind of like an in-between step where you then have to like become self-reliant. And so that's where I learned how to like fill my pipeline and make the calls and do the uncomfortable work of like, at that time selling was super uncomfortable for me. Now I love to sell. I'll sell all day. But then it was like, oh, am I going to, so doing that uncomfortable work. And so for me, it wasn't really like a full side hustle. It was just an additional service that I was offering. Right. And then it started to be time when I was like when I was stretched too thin, and I was like, just like, honestly, like, I would get like annoyed. And it wasn't that my clients were annoying or anything like that. It was just like, I was doing so much that I just couldn't really sustain it. And so that's when I started to really look at it. And what was it? I hired a business coach that helped me kind of put my offers and my packages together, because at this time, like, like, I could sell, but I wasn't like a great salesperson. And I knew what I wanted to offer, but I didn't have it nice and neat. It was kind of just this sloppy, weird offer. Yeah. I could help you with all of your money junk. Hire me.
Right.
And so for me, it was, once I hired the business coach, that really helped me to solidify the offer and to get my sales process kind of dialed in. And from there, that was when I started to really feel the confidence. And so, it probably took me 9 months of uncertainty and that like kind of inner conflict. From the time that I actually really knew that I was not going to be a stockbroker forever to the time that I actually left was probably about 9 months of just wriggling in uncertainty.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's zoom in. You reminded me of something when you said that you were uncomfortable at first of selling. Reminded me of this episode. I don't know if you're a Friends TV show fan. There's an episode where Monica and Phoebe are doing a catering business, and Monica has to ask for the bill to be paid on a catering job they're doing for a wake. And she's very uncomfortable doing that. How did you get over that hurdle of like, asking for or selling, deals and asking for money? Because I think a lot of people have that uncomfortableness of selling. And how did you kind of push yourself through that hurdle and get to the other side of being like, yeah, I can talk to anybody. I can sell to anybody now.
So at first it was just literally learning the language, right? Like at first, like dialing in on the sales process. So that was kind of it. So like my process is I ask people like, well, what's your frustration or challenge? Where kind of help them figure out what's the gap, figure out what it is they want. Like, what are you working toward? What do you want? And then like, there's some questions, and then I'll just be like, all right, well, here's the thing I have to offer, and here's how it goes, and here's the price. And so at first it was the language, and then it was learning to be okay in the silence of letting them think about the answer. So at first I would be like over explaining and over justifying rather than just like being quiet for a minute and letting people just have their own mental process. So learning to be quiet and in a meeting, learning to use silence to let somebody else fill the silence around what it is they want or their objections or whatever, that was a big move. And then probably the biggest move was that I learned to be very okay with rejection. Like, not just a little okay. Like, I'll eat a rejection sandwich all day and it will not ruin my day. Where like at first, I would get a rejection. Somebody wouldn't want my offer, wouldn't want to talk to me, wouldn't want my appointment or whatever I was selling. And I would take it personally and I would be disappointed and I would be discouraged. And like my whole like energy level would drop. And at this point, like, it's not like I love rejection, like I go looking for it, but the sensation of rejection I got very, very comfortable with. And I find it like a little exhilarating, to be honest. And so like learning to just really like be okay with the rejection sandwich was really like the main thing. So like if I have back-to-back sales calls, if person one doesn't want what I have, it doesn't matter. I'm taking the same level of energy and attention to level two. Like I don't need to go back to my, meditation mat and lick my wounds anymore. You know what I mean? Like it's just like, oh, all right. Oh, got a rejection sandwich. Okay, cool. On to the next thing. And we're just going with it.
Yeah.
That was really the game changer where it stopped being about me. For a long time, when somebody would or wouldn't want my thing, it would be like, my ego would make it about me. It's like, and now I'm like, well, here, you have this problem. I have this solution. Is it the right solution? Yes or no? Okay, cool. It's not about me or my offer. It's like you and your choices. And that moved the pressure off of me. For the longest time, I'd be like, was the offer not right? Did I price it wrong? Was it too much money? Did I do a bad job on the sale? I'm like, no. At this point, it's like, here, you have a problem. I have a solution. Would you like it? And if you don't, then it's fine, but it's also not about me. It's about
Right.
you and wherever you are, whatever commitment you want to make with your time or your money or your energy. And it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. I like that a lot. So let's switch gears a little bit. And this is still somewhat related. Let's talk about stress. It's really stressful moving from, not having to worry about all of the overhead stuff because you're an employee, even though you were on commission. And then now moving into your own thing, and now you're having to, worry about all of the things, right? Like all the books and the taxes and the this and the that and the other. How do you deal with that? How do you balance that with life? Like, are you a big exerciser? Like what do you do to help you kind of take away some of that stress?
I meditate very regularly, and I go to the gym a few days a week, and I lift weights, which for me is what I like. It's like the way that I like to do it. And other than that, it's really just, I don't get too worked up about things. Like, I've kind of learned to really manage my energy in a day to day where, we take our time. We get our work done. And actually I feel that one of the things I've recently started to do that I think helps to reduce the stress is I started to really say no to a lot more than I say yes to. So we started to really streamline our operations and really look and evaluate so for instance, so I create content. So we're on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and on Facebook, I have a Facebook profile, a page, and I think 2 or 3 groups, right? So we have these and all, and then I'm on LinkedIn and we have an email list and we have and so when you really look at all of the things, like, all right, well, does all of this make sense? Like, do I have the capacity to do all of these things well? And so for example, I have a LinkedIn, but I do not pay a lot of attention to LinkedIn. Why? Because it's not exactly where my clients come from. Most of my clients come from Facebook or Instagram. So I'm not putting a lot of time and attention in. Could I? And if I did, would it work? Yes, but I have limited resources of time and attention. So what I started to realize is that the level of things that are available to do and that will work to get more clients, get more leads, get more revenue, whatever, is infinite. There are an infinite number of things that you can do to make money that will work. They will all work if you do them. That is a lot. That is totally overwhelming. And for a long time, like I've been in masterminds and I would go and I'd write down 57 ideas and come back to my team and be like, there are 57 ideas that we should implement. And I would watch the horror descend. And then I was like, all right, because do we need to do, will any one of those 57 ideas work? Mm-hmm. It sure will. If I do 57 ideas and don't execute on any of them well, will that work? No. So I was like, all right, so let's just assume that what we're going to do is going to work and just do less better.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. So in thinking about kind of everything that you've done here so far, are there any tools that you use that you absolutely could not live without now? Right? Like getting into this, you probably didn't have that many tools. And then over time, you found these things that now are just critical to succeeding and continuing everything going. What's the biggest tool that you think is
we use
important?
Trello to keep the whole team organized and nice and neat, and the checklist, and you can have pictures in it. That's something that my team, that my business really is it's probably like the backbone tool of the business. And
for listeners who don't know what Trello is, can you explain a little bit?
Oh, well, Trello is this, all right. Do you guys know the very big Post-it notes, the Post-it notes that are like the size of like a half a door? Well, it's kind of like that. You could put other small Post-it notes on there with all of your task lists, and you can assign the Post-it notes to other people. So it's like the big piece of paper, and then you just move little Post-it notes around it. That's probably the best way that I have to describe it, but it helps. You can keep your checklist. You can assign tasks. You can attach files, and you can put you can attach links and all of the things. So it's just a place to really have like central organization. So it helps for like project management or for keeping tabs. And we even use it for CRM, which is probably not its absolute best use, but for the size and for the level of leads that we're managing, it works for us. And it's a very customizable tool. You can attach it to your Google Docs and to your calendar and to your emails, and it pulls a lot of things in.
And you can get started with Trello for free. You can just jump right in, and there's a free version of it that you can use.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's really not that expensive for the amount of functionality that it has. I think ours is like less than $50 a month. It's like, but it goes up as you add more and more people to it.
Right.
So.
Right. Exactly. So, okay. Last question for you. We've been kind of talking about money this whole time, but I want to give some tips to our listeners. Like, what are one or a couple of tips that you would give our listeners of things that they should think about to help them be better at managing their money?
So if somebody's in business, then the number one most important thing that I think you can do for your relationship with money is to understand scarcity, what scarcity feels like in your body, and how to manage yourself through scarcity. Because as an entrepreneur, you are 100% going to encounter moments, days, weeks where your revenue is down or your expenses are up or something happens or you need something to be able to expand, and you are going to experience scarcity. It's going to happen. And so when we don't manage ourselves well through scarcity, what ends up happening is we get I call it like jam hands. It's like you get scarcity on your hands, and then you go and you touch everything. And then everything turns sticky, and then you have to clean everything up. And so if there was a thing that I could go back and really learn, it would be how to sit with myself in a moment of scarcity rather than making decisions from that place and making a mess and then having to go back and clean it up.
Yeah. So don't make rash decisions when things are going wrong.
Yes.
Yeah. I love that. That is great advice and a great place to end on. Brie, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. This was awesome.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Side Hustle to Small Business podcast, powered by Hiscox. To learn more about how Hiscox can help protect your small business through intelligent insurance solutions, visit hiscox.com. That's HISCOX.com. And if you have a story you want to hear on this podcast, please visit hiscox.com/share your story. I'm your host, Sanjay Parekh. You can find me on Twitter at Sanjay That's SANJAY, or on my website at sanjayparakh.com.